Portal-Burney writer of poetry and fiction and creative nonfiction who taught writing here at North Island College for many years. His latest book, Both Sides Now, is a collaboration of short fictions with two of his past students. He has a solo collection out right now called Something Else Altogether.
Thank you, Karl, and welcome everybody. Yay! Another Electric Mermaid happening. That month was another ripper that went by so fast. I don't know where it went. Might be because I'm in the midst of moving. I don't know. But anyway, I'm really glad to have a break from that and to be here and to see everybody here live at Char's and our crowd out there in Zoom land as well. And it's asked me to join audio to start speaking. No. There. Okay, we're good. So let me begin by saying we're zooming to you from Char's Landing in beautiful downtown Port Alberni, the literary navel of Vancouver Island. And yes, here's for Port Alberni. And also, of course, we're on the unceded territory of the Hepetcheseth and Sishat First Nation, and we're grateful to them for sharing their land with us. And we have got a great schedule lined up for tonight. We're really lucky that Cynthia Sharp was able to skip work today and jump the ferry and come over to Char's Landing. So our featured reader is going to be live here in person. So we're really grateful. Looking forward to Cynthia reading from her new book, Ordinary Light. That's going to be awesome. And we got a good slate of open mic readers as well, waiting in the wings. So it's going to be a full evening's entertainment, I'm sure. Couple of things I want to say before we get started. A writing opportunity for one, especially for local writers here in Port Alberni. If anybody's into writing drama, we have a rare opportunity in that Robert Gunn has been spearheading a new play for Portal players to put on that's based in Port Alberni. It's going to be the Pirates of Port Alberni instead of Penzance. And sort of a fun play. And he's looking for writers who might be interested in taking on a scene or two or three if you feel like more. And so for those of you here in the audience, if that's something that might interest you, I'd encourage you to talk to Robert. Robert's right over there. And he can give you the kind of the dramatic arc of the play and the characters and so forth and fill you in. And you can have some fun with that. From what I've seen of what he's got started on it already, it's got a lot of promise for being a lot of fun. Lots of local references and history blended in there, and some great characters. So that's a fun opportunity if anybody's so inclined. Please see Robert afterwards. Otherwise, I just want to say thank you, Char, as ever, for being the hostess with the mostest and having us here again. Thank you. And thank you to Karl for moderating us and lining up our readers. Thank you, Karl. And a big thank you to all of you who have joined us tonight, the featured reader, Cynthia Sharp, and all the open micers, and those who have come along just to listen. We're really happy to have an audience as well. So let's get going here without further ado. We're going to start by going to Zoom land to Ontario, London, Ontario, where Jennifer Wenn is waiting patiently. And I have to confess, Jennifer, I missed your feminist reading there on the weekend. How did it go?
It went pretty well, yeah.
Good. That was on Friday night, I think, eh?
It was. There might be a recording made available, I'm not sure. But yeah, it went pretty well.
Good to hear. And what are you going to share with us tonight? Some more poetry I'm taking from your book?
Yep. I'm going to go back to the new book, Here Through the Silence. It's available and the information will go up, I'm sure. In the book, there's a whole lot of standalone stuff. There's also two major pieces, and I'm going to do one thing from each of those. The one is called Bernardo Boys. I've read one or two things from this before. It concerns my grandfather, who was a home child, Bernardo Boy, and didn't know anything about his background. And then after he passed away, there was decades spent trying to sort it all out. And this is quite near the end, and it's sort of a retrospective look back on the search, I suppose. Canto 15. You should write this down. My mother's words, a simple supplication that pierced the dike of inertia, allowed a river of pent-up tales to burst forth and transform modest tracts of curiosity to flowering meadows of witness, allowed torrents of voices to course through in search of a humble outlet to the sea of remembrance, writing, rewriting, expanding, revising, mosaic pieced together pixel by pixel, writing decade in and decade out, oft delayed, distracted by life's siren calls, oft delayed, waiting for release of illumination as governments and institutions slowly pulled back the shades, oft delayed but never abandoned, delineating family trees, locating in time and generation, diagramming maps, locating in space, swirling with the dance of visual and word, writing and searching, a pursuit only understood and looking back now, internal drama then mirrored in genealogical quest, feeling for a stable platform in emotional quicksand, looking for the past to bolster my present, longing for all those voices to fill a lacuna deep inside, a hole where my spirit should be and was, but walled off and unseen. Jennifer's long interred feminine soul shining through Jeff's masculine cracks now and then, his labor infused with snatches of Jennifer's lyrical language, flashes of her profound empathy, a world, an era, and a self reimagined and restored, Jeff's lifelong project, a testimonial torch passed to Jennifer for completion and absolution. Thank you. The second one comes from Auschwitz Threnody, which is the cycle on having visited that place some years ago and trying to find a way to respond to it. This one is the third section. It's very near the beginning, and it's kind of a tourist journey to the gates, I suppose would be the best way to describe it. It's called Starting from Krakow. Krakow being a city in southern Poland, it's the nearest significant city to Auschwitz. Starting from Krakow, mature Canadian, Gentile, born end of the 50s, called by simple humanity to make a family pilgrimage, pay respects, to experience the witness, called to build on pre-teen memories of Dachau, thunderbolt out of the darkness, local shying away from giving directions, called to build on later memories of Yad Vashem, Israel's monument and memorial, names retrieved from oblivion, unfathomable horrors laid out, the righteous among the nations given their place. The Hall of Remembrance flickers from the eternal flame, bouncing off abhorrent labels seared into history's soul, Dachau, Auschwitz, and more, sunlight bleeding through a high-up crack. Called to go deeper, to closer approach evil's heart. Starting from Krakow, begun on a hill surmounting fire-breathing Smok-Wawelski's rumored draconic abode, a city by the 900s, bordering then bestriding the Vistula. Starry Miasto, the old town, somehow spared World War II's agonies. From St. Florian's Gate in the north, last holdout of the medieval city wall, now a venue for artist stalls, past the red brick rectangular Gothic glories of St. Mary's Basilica, home of the magnificent Wittstoss altarpiece, through the Grand Square, largest in old Europe, domain now of buskers and mimes, vendors and pigeons, and up Wawel Hill, realm of the cathedral, a glorious agglomeration cradling dead kings and Zygmunt's bell, whose immense tone requires 12 ringers. save for special occasions such as summer 1940s celebration of Francis Fall. Nazi overlord Hans Frank saw to that. And the great castle, standing guard over the river, an incredible congregation of medieval, Renaissance, Baroque architecture. Turn southeast, glance over Kazimierz, once Krakow's Jewish heartland, home to teacher and philosopher Benzion Rapoport, who pitched his life's work out a death train window, miraculously found and later published. Lift the gaze farther, a kilometer and a bit more, over the bending Vistula, and hovering in the haze will be a ghost quarter haunting modernity. Traces still there of past agonies, wartime Jewish ghetto, mothers, fathers, families, once walled in and marked for slaughter. Starting from Krakow, leave Wawel and Stary Miasto behind, head for a dragon's true home, 60 kilometers west through verdant, peaceful countryside. Wheeled human-stuffed abattoirs once rolled hellbound just over there. The clanks and wails and groans echo yet through the fields and forests. Under dark, churning billows, glowering from above in mortal combat with the sun, and into the waiting grasp just past the modest town of Oświęcim. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenn. And just continues to amaze me how you're able to go into a scene like that and bring in enough visual details, but it gets layered with this history, and then it gets layered with little anecdotes, like the author who threw his manuscript out, these little stories that get wedged in there. So by the end, we get this sandwich that's just such a rich meal.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
That was super. All right. We're going to go from Auschwitz to Deutschland itself now, actually. So we've got Lesli is there, and she's going to share some work with us tonight. And because it's the middle of the night, it's good we got you early. So if you do get tuckered out, you can always go to bed on us. But I know you've been a real trooper and usually hang in right till the end of Electric Mermaid. It's fabulous. What are you going to share with us tonight, Lesli?
I have like these numbered stories, or each one's very short. They're only about 500 words each. And it's just one of the stories of my childhood. It's just part of like a memoir, I guess, that I'm writing.
Beautiful.
And this is number 34. My sister and I cannot stop laughing. From the pew in front of us, a little girl turns around to stare in disapproval. In our grandmother's Baptist church in Far Rockaway, New York, the show is better than a movie. We figured that if our mother doesn't want us to embarrass her in church, then she shouldn't take us to one where the parishioners go crazy wild with religion, waving and clapping their hands, hanging onto the preacher's every word, and shouting, "Amen, praise Jesus, amen," nonstop. I stare at the women in disbelief. The same women who greet my grandmother stiffly at the door with, "How do you do, Mrs. Barrett?" are now transformed into the creatures I do not recognize, their heavy bodies swaying back and forth to the rhythm of their own chants, eyes closed, hands in the air. They have lost all sense of shame, oblivious to the sweat trickling down their faces, to the visible rolls of fat under their colorful dresses, which have become glued to their breasts and stomachs. We are no longer in a church, but visitors to the village, watching the village women take part in a ritual dance, women healing themselves, reclaiming their bodies in visible protest against the order which, I now begin to understand, deprives women of their bodies' expression. Yes, 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 I feel their power. I feel it in my chest, in my hands. My sister pinches me on the right thigh to remind me that we are in a church and that not just God, but Mama and our grandmother are also watching us. Mama has told us that she was brought up in this church. She was baptized as a baby in this church. She was married to Pop in this church. Now she is looking for herself, but she cannot find her among these dancing, sweating women. They are telling a story she no longer wants to hear, no longer wants to be a part of. She will not stand up and wave her arms and shout. She has become the wallflower, watching from the sidelines. We have come beyond this, she says. Even for God, women do not let themselves go. Outside the window, the ice cream truck rings its bell. My brother wakes up from his half sleep and whispers, "Ice cream man." He looks up at Mama. Mama puts her hand on his knee and frowns. "No talking in church," she says. When I am 11, I decide I want to be baptized in our church in Washington. Reverend Asline comes to the house to discuss what it means to accept Christ into my life. I say I am ready, even though on the inside, I am afraid that God will see that I'm not. I think God will think I'm only interested in being immersed in the pool behind the altar. I pray to God that he will see that I am a lost sheep and that I will not find my way back into the fold without his help.
Beautiful. Thank you. Lovely, Leslie. Thank you. That took us right into that experience, and I'm sure writing it must have brought you right back into those moments as well. That's great.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people of, I'll say our generation, I'm not sure exactly how old you are, and I won't ask, but yeah, we have those memories of when we were young and in church, and I know I spent most of the time fooling around with my brother. We'd take turns licking each other's shoulder to make each other laugh on our sports jackets. And at age 10, my parents said, "Well, make your choice. You don't have to go if you don't want to." And we said, "Well, we'd rather play baseball." So we're out.
Oh my goodness. No, we didn't have the choice. We had to go to these churches, and with my mother, with my father, wherever we were, we had to go to church and suffer.
Beautiful. Yeah. And a cementing factor for the family that it can be, right? And
Yeah.
it's that way for ours, but it's beautiful when it works. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Leslie. And again, thank you for staying up and being with us on the Mermaid. We're always really happy to see your smiling face.
Thank you.
You probably can't hear that thunderous applause that erupted spontaneously here in Char's, but it did. It was for you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we're going to go to our featured reader now here at Char's Landing. So Cynthia's been waiting in the wings there, and Cynthia Sharp, what can I say? We're so happy to have you here. She was a poet laureate in Vancouver for a while there in 2022. One of Pandora's Collective 2020 Poetry Contest judges, City of Richmond's 2019 Writer in Residence. She's got an MFA in creative writing and an honors BA in lit, and it shows in her work. There's a beauty in Cynthia's work that I found right from the beginning. It's kind of like listening to Cynthia is like a meditation, or it's like it's forest bathing. That's what it's like. It's forest bathing because her imagery is so rich in nature, and she just takes you into those natural scenes and recreates them for you through the poet's eye. So happy to have you here, Cynthia. Come on up to the mic. And I will say she's going to read from her new book tonight. That's Ordinary Light, her new book of poetry. And we have copies available here, and we'll put in the chat how they can be attained online as well.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Cynthia.
Thanks to Char's Landing and Electric Mermaid and everyone online. And they're available on Amazon online.
Oh.
That's pretty easy. They're also available in any bookstore. You can just walk into literally any bookstore in North America, big or small, and ask them to order it for you through a catalog that I'm forgetting the name of, but or go to Silverbow Publishing. I'll have to remember the name, but you can go into any store and say that it's and ask for it, and they can order it. Also, I don't have my watch with me, so you really do have to wave at me after 20 minutes and get me to stop. Okay. I was counting on the clock, but I can't see it. So it's also one more shout out to Derek. It was Derek's idea to call the book Ordinary Light based on the last lines of a poem that I read. I was joining from Zoom, but I read to this group, and Derek said, you should name the book that. And I did.
It stuck out.
So this first one is just a really short one. Petals, shade, texture, light, story. And then we start to get into the earth feelings here. Here's my glasses. This is earth medicine. When sunlight permeates rainforest winter and blackbirds ascend from violet bark, soft clouds drift into ancient dragonflies, moving like wind across the sky. On those rare days when the blue in the raven's wing shines in the light, go through the open doors. I'm just so grateful to be here in Port Alberni because a lot of these are inspired by this beautiful land here in Cathedral Grove. This is one from my MFA class where we were writing about our roots. So I called it Petals and Roots. I am born of a grandmother, gentle as pink rose petals, a grandfather steeped in service and ecosystems we thought would survive, born of Irish and Scottish hope, and generations not comprehending that carbon dioxide emissions suffocate great-grandchildren, born to wild yellow snapdragons with bright orange centers, and shiny beetles I set free, oatmeal and quiet, classic literature and time. Scotland in rural Quebec, big blue stem grasses and isolation, clover and honey, wasps I avoid. Every element of my grandmother, beloved Pearl Lang, where the flowers are from. Born to wild raspberries and blueberries, garden fresh cucumber and wax green beans, cauliflower washed slowly and carefully, the everyday grace of enough. Golden lentil soup on the stove, warm study food, plenty to feed relatives. Almond-scented hand cream we share after doing dishes. Tea from the kettle my great-grandma would shine, her gift of service to her working daughter. Then there were winters without plumbing, wearing hand-knit acrylic knits that never kept out frostbite, no matter how elaborate the patterns. My grandfather's woodshop I swept daily, waiting with him long mornings for turtle eggs to hatch in the sand. Summer dips in a glacial-fed lake, where he catered to injured fish near the shore, while I baked clay shapes in the sun. My 10th birthday, a canoe ride to watch water lilies blossom. I am born of great-grandmothers in Montreal, wanting me confirmed Anglican, and my science-loving grandfather telling me I don't have to do anything I don't want to, although I did that because I wanted to. Born to Canadian-style Chinese food in town with extra soy and salt for rare occasions like my grandma's retirement and my graduation. Today there are eagles, echoes, and freedom, a planet to protect from the brink, its hold on me deeper than ashes. You can see this book was both a celebration of our beautiful planet and also the hope that we take all the protection that we can. We have all the information we need. And so the hope that we get there quickly. It was also written during COVID. So this next one, it was Alone and Together, written during the first 3 months where we didn't know what was happening. I open to sky, clouds and blue summer, yield to the peace of lying still. My back eases into alignment, Injuries subside. This life I wish I'd shared with you. I surrender to solitude, creation, writing, lying in wild daisies, like I did in my 20s, wishing you were with me, that we hadn't been cut apart. It's the kind of day when mellow jazz drifts in July windows, over neighbors watering lawns. We could almost forget there's a pandemic in Vancouver, a break from bouts of wildfire smoke, an almost normalcy. Bird calls open time, mallards, geese, crows, the feathery lilt of cypress in the wind. I garden, read, daydream in the hail of uninterrupted leisure. Commune with life and interaction beyond these walls. I dance dreams into plays, existence a learning curve, starting and ending on gratitude. When the sky cools, I look to the sunflections, the glass jars on the counter create on the wall, each one different, catching the light in a unique way. The black cherry jar, a mirage of diamonds, now a hummingbird angel. It's one of those days when clouds break up into millions, an explosion of atoms into universe, and we lay orange lilies on lawns, a tribute to heroes on front lines. 5-hour meditation, rest, 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 then yoga, the relief of accomplishment, an explosion of bright color, living spirit, oxygen released like world bursting forth. Breath the sails, propelling me along an ocean. Let me be longer at peace, hope like islands of grass in the sun. I forget everything else I'd wanted to say, just gratitude for real community and purpose. The value of culture, the value of meaning and kindness. Voices cycle past my window in the lightness of summer evening. We stretch like dogwood trees, realizing we've grown. There's the return of time. We're all ordinary these days, and there's something beautiful in that. Our regular, unstyled hair and selves, ordinary, light. So thanks to Derek for suggesting that title. And a lot of, as was mentioned, a lot of my poems are meditations. I like to start out my day looking out my window, finding what to be thankful for, writing down what I see. And I started to realize they're becoming poems. I can put them into books, but they really start as just gratitude. So this one is breath. Early rays illuminate the balcony, slow beginnings of a Monday. Hummingbirds remind us we are part of the peaceful rhythms of nature. There is time for all. Squirrel pauses. A pink lotus opens. Monarchs flutter through tall grass, dancing in the light. Silver and burgundy strokes of paint on warm canvas. At ease in an outdoor studio. The calling of our bodies to the sea. The poetry of stillness in late afternoon, when the leaves of the Japanese maple are tinged with elixir. Pearl crescent butterflies alight in aster and lavender, reminding us it's the little things that make up our lifetimes. Breathing each moment of sun and now the cadence of a day. Yeah, this one is sea dreaming, and it was about those 6. I think for me, I took the call to stay home really seriously. So the first 3 months I just stayed in my apartment, and then the next 18 months I just stayed around my neighborhood. So I was always dreaming of going to the ocean, which is only really a 10-minute drive from my home or a 20-minute walk, but I never quite got there. So I went 18 months just thinking about what it will be like. So this is sea dreaming. I celebrate earth breathing in this rest from our exhaust, this reprieve from pollution. Give thanks for all those safe from the virus, tasting clean air for the first time over Beijing. Watch in amazement as whales glide into inlets, now that we've eased up on our flurry of noisy boat traffic. And when it's finally safe, walk in sunlight and cherry blossoms. Let sea wind moisturize my skin, and once again dip bare feet in the swoosh of waves over shore. I don't know if people were following those stories early on, but I thought it was amazing that when we slowed down, when humans slowed down on our consumption a little bit, there was a blue patch of sky over Beijing. I thought, how amazing. And then just in Vancouver, when we eased up on so much boat travel, whales started coming to the harbor, and I watched it online, but us slowing down a bit gave everything else a chance to breathe. So that gives me a lot of hope that we can really tackle climate change, and that, if we just cut down a little bit and do everything that we can, there's so many solutions that other species will get to live well too. So it was nice to see what we can do when we just step back. And so I went on a theme of what we can do for the earth. This is each step with the earth. It starts with a camera taking me for strolls, teaching me to listen to the stories of flowers, and from my window, the clouds. My bed, a Mexican beach, journeys inner, each step with the biosphere, celebration rather than sacrifice, Easter rather than Lent. To walk and drink in my community, to travel on foot, learn the names of local shop owners, give thanks for beaches, foliage, and clean air most days. Bend down to see cappuccino striped snails drinking rainwater from concave orange maple leaves. Help purple starfish back into the sea, allowing simplicity to heal. So I love what we learned about being able to walk around and slow down and just go at a slower pace. And I felt like my life really opened up by doing that, by walking around. I started walking around my own neighborhood and going around with the camera, and just learning to find beauty in all the little things. This one is another celebration of that, renewal, and finally getting to the ocean. Healing majesty of the ocean at dawn, cocoon of rhythmic eternity, translucent turquoise saltwater waves, how strong your presence in us can be. Touched by afternoon light, rich butter yellow cup swirls, amid shades of green and trees, the sun upon our dreams. Evening arrives with refreshing relief, peaceful bliss of resting beside a sleeping child, little hands turned inward to our heart as if in prayer, quiet of the breaths, rain on the skylight, moonbeam on the sea. I have a few more poems, but I thought I should check how we're doing for time. Okay.
You're good. Another 5 minutes.
Okay. So this is ferrying to freedom, about jumping on ferries. I love to jump on ferries at the last minute. So this one was going to Bowen Island. If I could add a day to any month, I would give it to May and see Snug Cove tomorrow. I would read Harry Potter all morning in bed, inscribe dreams in its pages, then don the coral Italian silk blouse with billowing sleeves that I paid too much for, and paint my nails cherry tree floral with lime leaves. I would breathe spring light, wear pink petals in my hair, and let the wind weave ocean spray through my curls. Inhale the aroma of fresh sea salt, ferrying over to forest trails and hikes through the rainforest. I would taste the starlight in royal blue skies, aquamarine blossoms traveling deep in the night, and live solely on my terms. So this one was written to a painting my friend Jilly Watson did of trees that were just so gorgeous, rainforest trees that are just so gorgeous, they look like flowers to me. And I called it Sky Flowers. Branches mingle into buds, a canopy of butterflies setting sail, the blossoming of talent from a hidden cove of ideas, the work of the trunks to manifest largely the kernel within, to dream in blends and bends of sea green world, the magnificence and relief of standing tall. We are fluorescent fronds of tree fish, swimming through phosphorescent foam to a clear path of what we deserve to be. The mysticism of color, aura of forest made tangible. Like ancient dragonflies, the esoteric heart of the world, tasting creation, we embrace permission and freedom to go directly to where we most need and want to be. An island cocoon of love, light, and safety. In the communion of trees, we learn by steadily working, day by day, season by season, stretching branches to finally flourish, that self-actualization is for the good of all. Our growth protects others. The evolution of consciousness mirroring meditation. And my next one I want to do. My next one I want to do was written after my last trip to Port Alberni. Jackie Carmichael took me for a walk in Cathedral Grove, so I have to read that. This is The Temple of Trees. Deep inside Cathedral Grove, I morph into the heart of ancient cedar, Empyrean resin, an open path to the mysteries of the universe. Veins flow, leaves fall, gentle curves embrace entropy, spread into earth, the birth canal we imagine death to be. Ashes journey to rich soil in the sinewy trunks of cedar. Palpable palms unveil the paradox. This journey, a golden tunnel to the core. A moon carriage, the whole earth in its cradle. An embryo to another world. An inverse cocoon spiraling beyond the descent back.
One more.
One more. Okay, perfect. So let's end with another Alberni poem, Evergreen Altar. Sorry, I keep hitting the microphone. Stay focused and strong in the saffron night, ashes sprinkled in soft trunks of naturally fallen cedar, a realm of rose highlights, sparkling in aurora borealis. Shadows won't catch you if you beam toward radiance, no longer manipulated by misguided obligation to enter any murkiness not meant for you. Inhale the auspicious candescence, infused with the scent of conifer, a candle along a pomelo path to your inner child. Stream along starlit stones in forest soil, through blood vessel rivulets to dissolution, the return to nothing, reborn in light, arteries pulsating, universe creating, destination in sight. Flow to the heart, the inner transcendence of trees, a wrapped mummy in womb time bliss to eternity, one with the altar of earth.
Beautiful.
So thank you so much. I just remembered it's the Ingram catalog. If you go into any store, there's a catalog called the Ingram, INGRAM catalog, and stores through North America and the world can order my book there. So you can walk in and order it if you'd
Beautiful.
like.
Thank you, Cynthia, and that was just transcendent. It's so nice that you remind us again and again to pay attention, right, and get connected and feel what's inside nature and what's coming back to us all the time. So I want to just open it up. If you have a moment there, just stay at the mic. If anybody's got any questions they'd like to ask Cynthia, you can holler them out in house here or pipe up on Zoom and Zoomland, and we'll attend to your requests there if I see you, and if I don't, just start talking.
I'm on a Zoom.
Oh, there you are, Laura. Go ahead.
First of all, I know Cynthia really well, and I've heard her, and every time it just gets better and better and better. I get more amazed. I'm not the most grateful person all the time, and so like the softness and you know, and I just wanted to know. You said a lot about how like I know you've talked about slowing down from the pandemic. And you talked about a little bit about with nature, but was there was there something that wasn't part of nature that also inspired you on a different level?
I think, yeah, that's a good question because I was really meditating. I was trying to figure out all those mysteries of life and the answers we don't know. And that's coming out a little bit. I was wondering, because we went through the pandemic where we're hit with news every day about death and dying and uncertainty and what's going to happen and isolation. And so I cope with that partly by going into nature and going to the ocean. But it did get me wondering just about what's beyond. So yeah, I'm asking questions that I don't have answers for, and I think that comes out in the poetry. And just, I think the answer I came to is to accept the mystery, like just to be at peace with the mystery of this amazing planet that we get to live on, and to stop trying to control the answer. I was trying to figure out, like, is there life after death? Can I harmonize my spiritual beliefs with scientific evidence? I was raised, one family was church going, the other family was atheist, and I love them both, and they both have a huge influence over me. And I stopped trying to find answers and accepted the mystery. And actually, I also Googled where we are for a different project, that little kid's book, Marcy of the Stars, that I'm writing. I Googled, where are we in the universe? I needed her to know. I wanted her to just be looking at a map and find out where we are. Yeah, and people are smiling. They know. We don't know where we are in the universe. How cool is that, right? So that we don't know. I get goosebumps. So that moment of not knowing where we are in the universe, we don't know, gave me a sense of peace with not knowing. And I think for me, that's my answer, that I don't have to know. I just have to be present to where I am. But I struggled with that, I think, through the book. What happens? Are we reborn in some way? Do we go into the earth? How do I become at peace with the fact that this body ends? And then I found peace with the mysticism that this universe is so far beyond my comprehension that I'm just grateful to be in it. But that goes on the book too, how you might existentialist crisis. And
I love how you can weave the contradictions too. That's thank you.
Yeah, I second that, Laura. There's just this lack of prescription about what she's talking about, that it just opens up to the questions and just to be with them and sit with them, and whatever comes, and that's good. Yeah, it was lovely. Thank you for that question. That was great. Anybody else have anything they'd like to ask Cynthia out there?
When did you start doing poetry? Like, when did you start? Like, what, were you young or older?
I started really young, but I didn't start publishing until really recently. My great grandma gave me a book of poems when I was 5, and I'm so grateful for that. And even growing up without TV, at the time we didn't really consider it a blessing, but I realize now that it was. So I grew up just surrounded by books, and I was always writing poems, like probably really bad poems, but I don't care. Poems make me happy, right? I don't even think there are bad poems. I think that everything that we want to say at any age is worth saying and worth sharing. So I wrote my rhyming poems through.
Yeah.
That's what I believe.
The
So
picture of the cover, but the picture on this book is amazing.
Thanks.
That's awesome. Who did that?
My publisher friend Candace James did it, and she's got the title for it in here, and I just love that too. I got to find the title for it because it really goes. I was just looking through on the internet for pictures, and then she'd happened to post that, oh, Paradise Found is the name of the painting. I'm like, that is what I found by deciding that it's okay not to know. It's okay just to live well and be open to the mysteries. But yeah, I've been writing poetry my whole life, and I think poetry is just a wonderful healing experience. And then in 2018, it's always good to be nice. I was giving Candace James a ride, and she's a publisher. And on the way, I was giving her a ride home because her taxi didn't show up, and she got a text on the way that the book that was going to go to print that Monday was pulled, and she needed the book to go to print on Monday, and this was Saturday night. And she's like, Cynthia, if you really have 80 poems on your floor, send them to me in 24 hours and I'll make a book for you. So I did.
Wow.
That was the first book, and then this is the second one. So
Wow.
I think it's worth taking shots publishing. It's worth writing just for yourself. And
Lovely. Excellent. Awesome. Okay. Any other questions out there? We're going to move along. All right. Thank you so much, Cynthia. That was delightful. And again, our books are here. Okay, we're going to pop back out into Zoom land now and over to Gibson's Landing. Kathleen is waiting in the wings there to share some prose with us, I'm guessing. How are you, Kathleen?
Fine.
Good.
This is something light. It's not what you think, officer, I said outside the open door to the church as I hastily set down the laptop, slide projector, portable screen, converter box for the sound system, and my carry-all full of sticky notes, markers, and extension cords, which I watched spill out onto his rather large, flat feet. And why don't you tell me what it is I am thinking, ma'am? The handsome, if somewhat rugged young officer replied as he stepped over the markers toward me, narrowly avoiding tripping over the cords. I could just imagine him estimating the street value of all the electronics, eyeing the wide open door and putting 2 and 2 together and getting 5 or 22, but never 4. I'll tell you as soon as you let me turn off that alarm, I shouted over the incessant blaring, which must have been what summoned him in the first place. I was closing up the church after the garden club meeting. I'm the president. I had just turned on the alarm when I realized that one set of lights was still on. I mean, what kind of idiot designs lights, some of which switch up to go off while others switch down? Shouldn't they all go the same way? Anyway, I thought I had enough time to run in and turn them off, but obviously I didn't. Silly me. Those last 2 words were added just to appease him. I could tell he preferred the helpless type. When I saw him nod his acquiescence, I deactivated the alarm. So you see, officer, all is fine now. I'll just do a quick last check of the building and the lights, lock up, pick up all this equipment, and go. Let me check that it is safe, and then I'll help you carry that equipment to your car. I could see there was no stopping this officer. I must have overplayed the helpless role. My mother always said I did. See, there's nothing, officer, I told him as he looked around the empty activity room. Now I really should get home. I live alone, and I don't like getting back so late to a dark, empty house. Let me just check this next room, the officer said, pointing to a door at the far end. It's only storage, but we don't keep the garden club equipment there. It's safer at my house. Did I mention that I'm club president? But I spoke too late. He was already opening the far door. He shut it quickly and turned to me. You better wait outside while I call for backup. The rest of the evening was a blur of crime scene tape, bright lights, and squad cars. I was numb from the shock of it all until I was asked to identify my best friend, Petunia. who was now a lifeless body splayed out on the floor of the otherwise empty storage room. That's when the floodgates opened, and I couldn't stop sobbing, and the rugged but nice officer took me home. When was the last time you saw your friend Petunia alive? The officer asked the next day when I agreed to meet him in the church activity room. I last saw Petunia just before the club meeting. I have to admit I was so busy during the meeting giving my report. Did I mention that I'm president? And showing my slides that I lost track of her. Oh dear, we've had nothing but bad luck in the past few years. Our members keep moving away, and now this. We're down to only a handful. We've been trying to carry on, to sow the seeds for future growth. But this murder is a real setback for the club. The kind of severe pruning that could easily lead to total decay. I'm not sure we can come back from this. I'll need to interview all the members who were at the meeting. I'll talk to them here. It's as good a place as any. Without me, I imagine. No, I think it would be helpful if you sat in on all the interviews, if you don't mind. Well, I am president, know all the members, their plants as well as their temperaments and orientations, and I would be happy to help. Tom Atto was first. Of course, he claimed to know nothing, just as he always did. He told the officer he never even saw Petunia at the meeting. I could see I'd have to take the lead at this interview. Tom, remember how Amaryllis was so opposed to my plan to sponsor a garden at the community housing complex? Amaryllis is Tom's wife, officer. Amaryllis said our club dues should be spent on us who had earned them, not on a bunch of poor people. Those were her words, officer, not mine. Yes, I remember, Tom replied, while looking shiftily at both of us. He said to me, when Amaryllis brought up her objections at the meeting, you told her that those people wouldn't be so poor if her family's factory paid them decent wages. And I'll end here because my 5 minutes are up. But I might continue it next month.
Are we going to solve the mystery next month?
Maybe not. It
Maybe
might take
not.
more
That's
than
all right.
5 minutes.
I don't mind carrying on with it. That's good. You can string us along for a few months if you want.
It'd be a cereal.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Kathleen. That was great. Good beginning there. Good mystery. All right, we're going to shift over now for David there in Gibson's Landing. Just move the laptop over, and there we go. Good evening, David. Oh, you're muted there, David. Kathleen muted you. She's playing tricks on you, I think. Yep. There we go.
Oh, okay, it's done.
Oh, okay, we've got you now.
Okay, yeah. Last month I read something which is set 50 years ago in Belfast, and this is the same era. And I only ever visited Ireland because of Kathy, who's antecedents are from there. And I, for most of my life, I stayed away because whatever, racial guilt. I'm British. Okay, here we go. While browsing the poetry shelves in Kennedy's, my favourite Belfast bookstore, I felt someone tug at my sleeve. I heard an East Belfast accent. "Where's the dirty books?" he whispered and squeezed my ribs. "Sorry, I don't work here," I snapped and turned away. "Just teasing. I knew you'd be in a bookshop last night," came a familiar sneer. "You wearing glasses and all, same as a Malone Road school, eh?" I adjusted my foggy glasses. Dear God, it was Tanky Doolan, whose reputation, even at 14, had once discouraged neighbours from walking down Malone Road when school came out. I'd last seen him in 1964, as he was being wrestled through the school's wrought iron gates by the janitor and headmaster, one on each side of his squirming figure. He never came back to school, but his presence in the district continued to haunt nervous kids like myself. Tanky held out an arm, and to my own surprise, I shook it, though his leather glove was moist from the rain outside. He even gave me a cheery poke and an unwelcome hug, as though we were old friends, which was certainly not. Jesus, but you've shot up like a weed, so you have a beanpole, but where's your muscles, man? Muscles, that was Tanky. School books had not been his thing, but Tanky had thrived in the streets and illegal drinking clubs during the worst of the Troubles. His proudest boast was that British troops had all been issued with his mugshot on a card. He'd once thrown rocks from a roof down onto the annual Apprentice Boys' March, and the police had reluctantly saved him from a Protestant lynching. Apart from that, Tanky Doolan had ceased to exist for me, and it was 10 years since I'd seen him. The bookstore lights blinked twice, and I jumped. Flashing lights in 1973 could mean a thunderstorm or a power cut or militants blowing up a substation. Those were nervous days. 5 minutes to closing, please. Bring your purchases to the counter. 5 minutes. I hurried to the front, leaving Tanky puzzling over the shelf of sex manuals. If I was quick, I could get my Ted Hughes selected poems paid for and wrapped and out of the door without having to speak to Tanky ever again. I just made the number 27 by running to the stop outside the Coach and Horses, and I climbed to the top deck so I could enjoy a cigarette. Rain on the front window distorted the view along Kenmare Street. We'd gone barely half a mile when traffic halted, and the keening wail of a fire truck wove its way down the centre of the road. Behind it came a dark blue van that stopped to unload policemen, who began to shoo pedestrians into side streets. The bus lurched forward again, and I finally relaxed and unwrapped the Ted Hughes poems. As a payday treat to myself, I had just purchased the hardcover edition of Hughes's poems in a pristine dust jacket, and this was the first impression of the first edition. Home at that time was a bed-sitter in a rooming house, walking distance from the Ulster Institute for the Deaf, where I helped with the Irish Sign Language classes. But instead of going straight home, I extended my payday treat by ducking into the warmth of the Napoli restaurant. At that time in Northern Ireland, cappuccino and sambuca were new words, the territory of older Italians like Marco, who ruled over the Napoli's pizza oven. So I sat up at the tall bar and sipped my espresso in a small glass cup and tasted a poem in my new book. How I wish I was the hawk that Ted Hughes wrote about. I fly up and revolve the world slowly. I kill where I please because it is all mine. I was made dizzy by the thought, but I came back down to earth and paid for the coffee. The rain was gusting even harder as I left the Napoli, so I lowered my head, hugging the book bag under my coat, and sprinted for home. Stop, pled a loudspeaker. Stop there, now, on the ground, now, on the ground. Camouflage trousers and combat boots appeared and swept my feet from under me, and I fell into 2 pairs of uniformed arms that wrenched my legs and arms up behind me and pushed my cheek into the cold grit of a Belfast paving stone. Something hard bored into my right ear, and movie images exploded in my mind. Once upright again and still pinioned, I saw the open door of my rooming house, and the 2 soldiers cradling submachine guns by the garden gate. A third man in a mottled green anorak looked at his notebook and compared it to the contents of my now rifled wallet. Your name is David Riley Kilbannock, yes or no? I was, yes. Mr. Kilbannock, you were in Kennedy's books on Kenmare Street, were you not? I had been, and now I wish I hadn't. An incendiary device ignited in that shop as you ran for it. You were identified as a suspect as soon as you left. What's he talking about? I bought a book of poems, for Christ's sake. You left in a proper hurry, didn't you, Mr. Kilbannock, running? You were seen running down the street after you left the shop. I stumbled over my words again. It was raining like this and I wanted to get the bus. The man growled through his clipped moustache. You were running with your face down and something under your raincoat, yes or no? Well, you were dumb enough to pay with a cheque with your address on it. Don't your IRA commanders teach you anything? My commanders? I felt faint. The man grinned. It's only because someone in the shop warned the staff what you'd been doing that they were able to clear everyone out before it ignited. No warning from you, you Republican bastard. and he showed me a rather large fist. The man continued, "Now, Mr. Kilbannock, would you just wipe your hands on these, both palms on these pads?" The close woven forensic pads he slid from a plastic bag were moist. "Thank you. Now you'll accompany us to the barracks for a wee chat with these gentlemen from the parachute regiment, while the lad works out what you've had in your hands lately. And now we'll have a look in your pocket. Stand very still. Oh dear, what have we here?" Now an angry paratrooper's hand tugged at my pocket and cautiously extracted what looked like a fat wax crayon with 2 short copper wires poking from the end. "Tanky Doolin, son of a gun."
Well, this could be a whole new version of the Dubliners, that's for sure. If you put this collection together there, David, that would be fabulously. Love that. I mean, that story from last month, that stayed with me for a long time afterwards. That the explosion at the end, it's perfect when it happens and you think, God, afterwards, I was totally surprised by that, but then I look back and thought I should have seen that coming. and that's similar in that story there. That's fabulous. You set us up perfectly. Nice work. Thank you.
Shut up, David.
All right. Okay, let's roll on then. We're coming live and in person here. Victoria Roscoe Romanis is going to read for us here in Char's Landing in beautiful downtown Port Alberni. Come on up, Victoria. Yeah. She's our spotlight reader tonight, so she's going to have a 10-minute spotlight.
Is that about right?
Char's going to make sure that spotlight is bright enough. That's good.
I can't see my words anymore. No, I can't. just joking. Okay.
All right, take it away, Victoria.
Hello, everybody, and nice to be here again. I
Good.
Passing through my career, I met many interesting people with lots of memories, and this is one: memories of merchant sailor. The year was 1941. World War II had been in progress for 2 years already, and men were signing up to join the troops. A 15-year-old Port Alberni lad, restless to escape a frighteningly dysfunctional home life, decided to sign up for the Merchant Navy. His elder brother had already found his sea legs months before. He recalled this time as an exciting adventure, holding his own with the crew who took him under their rough wings. He was happier than he had ever been. Life on the high seas exposed him to the toughest and crudest of men, who educated him into a life of boozing and boisterous behavior, eventually leading him to many difficult years of alcoholism. He tells me these shipmates arranged for the loss of his virginity with a willing lady in a port of call. His blue eyes sparkle as he quietly recalls the memory. The captain of his ship also wanted to take him under his wing, offering an opportunity to better his position, but the lad felt more comfortable with his crewmates, who had become his father figures. The merchant ships were sitting ducks as they carried ammunition and supplies across the North Atlantic, from Canada to England. The convoy was flanked with armed escorts, and this young seaman witnessed many of the merchant convoy ships being torpedoed. He recalls having no fear. Each port allowed the sailors the freedom to carouse and to relieve their raging hormonal urges. He recalls a shore leave in London when he and his mates were looking for a good time in the bars and streets of the city. Close to Shaftesbury Avenue, they encountered a petite young lady who was looking into a shop window. Now there's a stunner, exclaimed one of them, who crossed the street to try his charm. Returning to the group, defeated, he told them, she's not for the taking. The others moved on, but this young lad was enchanted and decided to try his luck. He walked slowly to her side. He recalled she must have been in her early 20s, beautiful and elegant. The two conversed, and he learned she was a ballet dancer. She was married, but her husband was fighting somewhere in Europe. Maybe it was his tender young age that seduced her, or his smiling blue eyes. Perhaps it was the luck of the Irish. Possibly it was the war. Whatever it was, the next thing he knew, they were on their way to rent a room. The intimate evening had a lasting impression. Now, in his mid-80s, he talks fondly of his evening with the ballet dancer. He still has her photo. Well, at 16 years of age, a sailor in wartime, thousands of miles away from home, and taken up in the arms of a sensual young woman, the experience would not fade greatly. It's the long-term memory that endures. Towards the end of the war, this young seaman, by now an able-bodied seaman, found himself aboard the Empress of Scotland. Formerly, this ship was named the Empress of Japan, but was renamed due to the enemy. The ship's cargo was 500 Italian and German prisoners of war, bound to a prison camp near a North England port in Birkenhead. Early in the morning, when the ship docked to Birkenhead, our young seaman and his friend of the same age stood on the deck surveying the complete devastation of the area surrounding the port. The German bombers had destroyed almost every building. The rubble and ruins was all they could see. Standing there, stunned, neither of them spoke. Eventually, the friend said, "I recognize this place. This is my home." Just to explain, in the merchant navy, sailors were from many different countries. When one voyage assignment was completed, the sailors went to a hiring office to obtain work on another ship. This is how a Canadian and an Englishman came to be together on deck that morning. The two disembarked. It was the end of their assignment on this ship. They walked through the rubble together, the friend trying to get his bearings to locate his home. In horror, they entered what was once his parents' house. It was dark, but light filtered in from the large cracks in the brickwork. Their eyes adjusted to the light, and there, by the fire, hunched over and sitting on a stool, was a woman looking vacant. The bombs had torn out her very spirit and left a shell. "Mum, is that you?" She turned, and a glimmer of a smile creased her lined face as she recognized her son. "Where's Dad and my brother?" "I don't know. Fighting somewhere, maybe in France." After a length of silence, his mother said, "I'll put the kettle on. Will your friend stay for a cup?" Our young sailor recalled he felt uncomfortable in the situation and needed to leave, so he said, "No, I have to go, but thank you." The two friends never met again. Such are the consequences of war. And the second one is called The Beauty of Aging.
Stay close to that mic.
Am I too far? Are you missing me?
Get closer.
You want me to read that again?
Yeah, just so we can hear it better.
Oh dear. Okay. Did you miss a lot?
No.
You're okay? Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. All right. The beauty of aging. There is a magic moment when the soul comes across its mate, when the heart and spirit are filled with a deep warmth that is often referred to as love at first sight. The overwhelming feeling that radiates throughout one's whole being, unable to be contained and cannot be explained. This emotion shines out and is unmistakable in the sparkling eyes and aura of the captured. The discovery of the small town of Zabelos was one such experience. At the end of a long and rugged logging road, the sheltered little community came into view, and her soul danced. This place excited her with its many derelict yet character-rich buildings. The abandoned rustic floral store, surrounded by overgrown shrubs, foxgloves, and other wildflowers. The boarded-up movie theater and deteriorating, unoccupied dwellings. The population of the sleeping town is now just below 100, compared to 5,000 during the peak of mining activity. Now there is one main business street with one cafe, a post office, one hotel that has seen better days, and a general store. The mountains sweep right down into the heart of the town and almost touch the back doors of the dwellings below, giving a cocoon feeling within the beauty of this location. It is situated on a deep seaport located on the Zabelis River Delta at the end of the Zabelis Inlet. The first gold miners in the early 1930s must have seen the beauty and serenity of this sheltered haven, or did they? Perhaps the prospect of gold and money was all they could see. Similar to many relationships, the excitement and wealth of their partnership dwindled when the minerals ran out. World War II returned to reopen exhausted gold and iron veins. Attention was turned to forestry in the 1950s. Fishing and a fish and ice plant were opened. A new relationship commenced. With time, this relationship faded too. In 1964, the Good Friday earthquake and ensuing tsunami brought destruction and lifted many buildings from their foundations. Now, fishing tourism holds the purse strings. If this little haven feels the pain of loss, it is well hidden. In the case of Zabelis, a different beauty unfolds within its abandonment. The distinctive aura that colors the outward appearance creates a magical feeling of an historic time hidden within the depth of this valley that snuggles up to the ocean, emitting evidence of its former liveliness. Yet to this onlooker, it is the beauty of aging and the present peacefulness that arouses the love affair with Zabelis. In the recent years, Zabelis has been threatened with fires and mudslides on the mountain that is the backdrop to this community, once more threatening further devastation to this beauty spot. We pray for stability and preservation. In the event of such a disaster, the deep affection with this place will always remain in the vaults of memory, holding on to the first meeting like an abandoned lover holds on to the memories of intimate joy. Thank you.
Thank you for both of those, Victoria. Beautiful stories. Thank you for both of those. Lovely. And I was listening to the first one, I just couldn't help but think you must have been, with your work, savvy or privy to so many stories from the old folks in Abbeyfield, or not Abbeyfield, but West Haven. Thank you.
They have and Echo and Fairport. They have so much to share.
Yeah.
There's, often people think, I think that there's nothing there, but yes, there is. There's a lot. There's a whole lifetime there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think a lot of people think, sexuality just disappears when people get old, like just wanting to talk about it. I mean, there's actually a higher incidence of AIDS happening amongst older people these days, which is really surprising, right?
Wow.
And I know the assisted living place my mother was in Calgary, when I talked to one of the staff there, got to know her quite well, and she said, this is a regular patent place. You wouldn't believe it, and so things are really changing in terms of
they
how
are.
people age and
They are. Yeah, I could tell you some stories too.
Yeah.
There was one gentleman who probably thought that I might have been, the one for him. And I said, well, I'm really sorry. But maybe we could find somebody who could come in here. So he said he missed explaining what he was missing.
Yeah.
So I went to the people up there and I thought, what's the harm in having somebody who's willing to give sex for money, come and be with him, make his last days happy. Unfortunately, I couldn't get through all the red tape. They were afraid of
Oh,
what else might happen.
yeah, scandal. Oh dear. Yeah.
But I won't tell you which facility that was.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for sharing those. All right, our next reader is Joe Lunchbucket, aka Bob Frankow, our octogenarian regular here at the Electric Mermaid. Good to
How's
see you
that?
again, Bob. How are you tonight?
Pardon me? Yeah,
We're good.
big UFO is orbiting Earth like our satellites, and their launched small ship evades all the space trash circling our planet and announces to the world that they're landing in New York City airport. Fearfully, UN officials greet aliens that speak almost fluent English. The visitors are as far advanced beyond us as explorers with gunpowder and steel were above Aboriginals on first contact. ETs claim to be from an overpopulated planet and ask only to settle on vacant desert land. In exchange, they'll end global warming, disease, bring world peace, and advance our technology to their level. This offer requires much thought because we can't house our own homeless, and we don't know if ET are that planet's best or felons like Australia's colonists. Explorers left sheep and pigs on islands and returned to harvest them years later. Could we too be an ET seeded delicacy? Have they returned for the harvest, or have we passed their civilization test and they're inviting us to join Milky Way galaxy of peaceful planets? Could another possibility be is that they're here to recruit practice killers to subdue our galaxy? Awed by newcomers' technology, after some discussion, United Nations greedily accepts. The newcomers start educating Earth children in large indoctrination centers. They could keep nations divided. Instead, they use English to teach pupils their high-tech skills. Asteroid threats, tsunamis, flooding, global warming, hunger, disease, and war have almost been eliminated. Earth is no longer split, but has a common language of communication, space travel, and the desert's bloom. ET has brought yet another religion and inadvertently or by design gifted us with pandemic, similar to explorers' gifts of pox, TB, and VD, thinning our ranks and saving endangered species from extinction. Conquerors are never deemed benevolent, and Earth's inhabitants can't compete with them. Drunk on newcomers' sacramental wine, we awake dispossessed of what is now valuable real estate, serving new masters because we were lured by their technology, just like Hawaiians. Have we lost our nomad independence that kept us warring and exploring new lands as we polluted and exhausted resources? Now that we have peace and longevity, will we overpopulate like Europe did and be forced to seek new worlds to colonize, even though our sun will last another 5 billion years? Will we, like Britain, decree that prison inmates New World's pioneers will be, and in this way we pay their debt to society? If new planets are uninhabited, will we need a colonizing missionary?
Thank you, Bob. All right. Yes. Was that an allegory? Absolutely. I think so. Okay, thank you for that. And we're going to move on now. Dean Lamount is going to read from here at live at Char's Landing. We got another Ned story tonight, Dean, or? All right, another Ned story it is.
Yeah. Ned sat at his kitchen window, staring out at the steady rain falling from the sky and running down the asphalt road. Rain heavy at times, the Environment Canada website had said. In his darkest moments, Ned felt that he and his fellow inhabitants along the West Coast were living in the urinal of the gods, a long strip of soggy coastline, the gods gleefully peeing down on the denizens below and laughing as the recipients shrunk from any contact with the rain, scurrying like wet rats, clutching their remotes and other handheld devices. Ned remembered reading about the First Nations people who lived along the coast in the times of early contact with the whites. The first explorers and anthropologists were amazed to see the indigenous people walking around in the rain almost naked. They laughed at the whites, bundled up in their furs and blankets. Sometimes after reading about First Nations history in his anthropology course at SFU, Ned would leave the stuffy confines of the SFU library and go for a run in the mountain trails surrounding the university. He had an imaginary companion. Some days, a young native boy who loved running with him, who used to run and hunt and pick berries and perhaps make love on the mountain before the palefaces arrived in great numbers. The young man, nameless, more presence, would run beside him up the long, steep hills, panting in unison. What did they care if the rain gods unleashed torrents on them? Their hearts were strong, and there was a hot sauna at the end of the run. Ned rose from his reverie in his kitchen, turned down the thermostat, and nursed away at his surrogate nipple coffee mug. They cut him off too early. They should have let him nurse longer. Death, where is thy sting? He asked the assembled trees and bushes outside as he went for a pee. More of a slow paralysis, he mused. No more running for this old buck, the gimpy right knee, which had complained for years during the mountain runs and rollerblading around the Stanley Park seawall, finally could not be denied. And so Ned turned his obsessive energy to biking and hiking. There was a period when he fantasized about biking across Canada for some noble cause. He used to stand by the bronze statue of Terry Fox and dream big. But as often happens, reality intruded on his fantasies. After some rigorous training on the hills above Port Moody and on Vancouver Island, Ned had to concede. He didn't have the knees or the butt for distance cycling, and so yet another oasis evaporated before his idealistic eyes. Looking out the window, Ned saw the sun poke through the clouds briefly, as if to taunt him, and then the sky closed up and the rain resumed. You're still a leathery old bird, though, he reminded himself. You can hike up to the lookout, bike, swim, pump weights regularly, not like your neighbor, the couch potato. The couch potato seemed to be attached by invisible strings to his couch. There he sat, hour after hour, mesmerized by football and hockey games. The electronic girlfriend syndrome. But perhaps to this fellow, Ned seemed like a manic, racquetball bouncing off one wall, then off another. The activity trap that many baby boomers fall into. Even in his retirement, many boomers were like lemmings rushing around looking for oceans to plunge into. But research had showed that active people were healthier and happier than sedentary people. The road runners consistently outperformed the slugs. When Ned was up in Fort Crack McCurry, he witnessed people succumbing to what was dubbed Fort McMurray fever. After a few months or years of long working hours in a harsh, often lonely environment, people developed an almost claustrophobic need to get out of Fort McMurray. In Port Alberni, Ned noticed a similar syndrome he called PA fever, the compelling desire to stay indoors, stare at screens, and complain that there's nothing to do in this town. There was, in fact, as Ned had discovered, plenty to do in old PA. You just had to unglue yourself from the couch and be a little adventurous. The darkness in the winter months could be overpowering. Ned had noticed an alarming correlation between the amount of light and his mood. Perhaps he and his fellow townsfolk succumbed to sad seasonal affective disorder syndrome. Perhaps that was the glue that held Ned's neighbor captive on his couch. If Ned were dictator of the universe, he'd impose mandatory annual health checks. Those who failed the physical would pay a surcharge on their Medicare premiums, a slug tax. Why should healthier people subsidize those who abuse themselves and become a burden on the healthcare system? Ned rose from his kitchen throne and saluted the attentive trees outside. "Hail Hitler," they cried. Ned had formulated his own Mein Kampf, which sought to reduce all human problems to a few simple guidelines. And one of its tenets, he reminded himself, was that people's lives could be divided into 5 or 6 sectors: health, money, family, work, relationships, and perhaps spiritual life. Both Ned and his sister agreed that there was usually some malfunctioning sector, at least one, or to use the 6-cylinder motor model, there was at least one bad cylinder. You could be in love, have a decent job, harmonious family and social relationships, but that's when an abscessed tooth or migraine would strike. Rarely, in Ned's humble opinion, do human beings fire on all 6 cylinders. Those anorexic nerds pumping themselves up mountainsides after parking their expensive little SUVs, wearing their mountain equipment, co-op duds, they're often a mess inside. That beautiful woman with the happy face, you may think everything's all warm and fuzzy, Norman Rockwell inside. But just as likely, it's film noir. Toxic boyfriend, oppressive parents. And as for Ned, it was only through the most assiduous financial management that he'd managed to stay broke all those years. He deemed himself lucky to have escaped the city, holding on to his little house and a modest pension with his knackers intact. Well, he decided it was time for a bike ride, rain or no rain. He quickly heated up a pair of boots in the oven, slapped on a coat of dubbin, put on his rain gear, rain pants, raincoat, rain gloves, rain boots. Once he was finished, he had a second skin. Charlie Brown goes cycling. Topping it off with a helmet and reflective vest, he was soon off. On bicycle, as the French say.
We're going to have to wrap it up there,
Okay.
Dean. You're way over your time there. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much.
So, over the last few months, there's been lots of chat about ChatGPT. Has anybody tried it? Nope. Okay. Hearing nothing. Okay. So, artificial intelligence. Oh, sorry, Robert Gunn. So I punched the following statement into the little search engine that comes along with it. The universe contains magnitudes of zeros of time and distance, is extremely cold and hot, cosmic dust and clouds of ice, along with billions of stars and planets and much energy. It then told me, yes, that's correct, and it then added a few lines and a few other ideas. So I then pushed that back into its little, whatever it's called, asking, can this statement, which was their statement, can this be turned into poetry? And it gave me this poem, or it may be doggerel, but it was generated at absolute light speed. It was about 5 seconds later, it came back with this. Now, there are real poets in the room, and they know the difference between poetry and doggerel. And I always think that the shorter the lines and the rhyming, the AABB sort of rhyming does tend a little bit towards doggerel in my view, but I have never taken any literature lessons. So this is what it gave me. In the vast expanse of space, a universe of wonders we embrace, a diverse phenomena and structures with distances and times beyond measure, galaxies far apart by light years, ages spanning billions of years, temperature extremes, hot and cold, wonders of cosmos we behold, cosmic dust and gas clouds abound, matter and energy all around. Stars and planets born anew, each with their own unique view, a complex and fascinating place, full of mysteries to embrace, awaiting discovery and comprehension, the universe's vast extension. Well, it's a little bit Rupert for those who, no, we don't need to clap artificial intelligence. My reading, on the other hand. So, but I mean, this is clearly not the territory that we heard already from Lesli and from Cynthia this evening. But it's not a bad piece of sort of reporting. So then I gave it this. I am an artist. I am an artist. Take me very seriously. Hear me, see me, watch me, spell me, sing me, ban me, and above all, pay me. I am an artist. I am convinced I can change the world. Meanwhile, tolerate my behavior, my attitude, my lies, excuse my dress and manners, my infidelities. I am, after all, an artist and maybe a monster. To be revered above mere doctors, teachers, and carpenters. The crushing quest for originality is my cross, but I am, after all, driven to create. An artist in a time of too much art, the struggle to be seen, the constant self-promotion, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, leave me no time for real creativity. So then I asked ChatGPT to improve on this. And I typed in my little doggerel. And it came back with this rather turgid piece of reporting. I am an artist and I take my craft very seriously. I believe in the transformative power of art to change the world, and I'm committed to creating work that inspires and challenges others. But as an artist, I know that I'm not always easy to deal with. I may have difficult personality or make choices that others do not agree with. I may dress or behave in ways that are unconventional. and I may struggle with personal demons that fuel my creative process. Nonetheless, I believe that my work is important. I deserve to be compensated for my contributions. I know that the pursuit of originality can be a burden, but I am driven by a need to create, to express myself in ways that others cannot. In a world where there is so much art competing for attention, it can be a challenge to be seen and heard. The pressure to constantly promote oneself on social media can be overwhelming, leaving little time for actual creative work. But despite these challenges, I remain committed to my craft. I shall continue to push myself to create work that is meaningful and to share it with the world in whatever way I can, because ultimately being an artist is not just a job, it's a calling. Sorry. I mean, I don't know. I don't think we'll see ChatGPT writing Henry Miller, for example, and clearly it wouldn't be capable of the personal experiences of Lesli that we heard earlier this evening, and obviously of Cynthia, but it might in fact take the roles of several reporters. I don't know. What do you think, Derek?
It's possible, absolutely. It's interesting how it read into what you gave it. You know, it's almost scary.
Yeah, no, it is scary. I mean, it's where the and now presumably all this is also in its own algorithms. But any other questions? Anyway, it's lots of fun.
Thank you, Robert. And again, if anybody's interested in writing a little bit of drama, please do talk with Robert and get in on that project. It's a worthwhile one to keep Portal players alive and theater happening in Port Alberni. So, absolutely. All right, we've got another local reader, Vicky Drybrough, who's going to share some work with us tonight. Hello, Vicky. Are we on poetry or prose tonight? Prose tonight, okay. There we go.
All right. Thank you. This is the first part of a 4-part series I started to write. I don't know if I'll ever finish it, but anyway, this is part 1. It's called Tips for Writing Creative Nonfiction. Tip number 1, creative nonfiction requires one crucial aspect that other genres do not, and that is truth. Penny and her husband Ray were sitting in lawn chairs on the grass in front of their house with their next door neighbor, Dwayne. It was a stinking hot day, the kind you only get on inland parts of Vancouver Island. Dwayne was going on about his new hot woman called Tara, who had just moved in with him. Ray was silent, but Penny asked questions. Is she settling in okay? Oh yeah, Dwayne shrugged. Everything she cooks has vegetables with it. I just throw them in the garbage. Can't stand that shit. Does she like to cook? Not really. He glanced at Ray and chuckled. She burned dinner last night, so Troy and I went out for a burger. Penny was beginning to feel sorry for this new woman. Dwayne was not an easy guy to live with. His other live-ins had only lasted a couple of weeks. She was probably feeling out of place and unappreciated. Ray stood up. I'll just go move the items so we can get into the basement. Dwayne continued to lounge in his chair and stare across the driveway to his house. Yeah, she gets the kids every second week. I don't know how that's going to work with all of us trying to eat breakfast and get to work and school at the same time. Penny smiled at him. You'll work it out. They're teenagers, not 5-year-olds. Yeah, I guess. It'll be nice for Troy to have 2 other boys to hang out with. Dwayne grinned like a truant child. She called me for dinner like 10 minutes ago. He chuckled. Not sure I want to eat more burned food. Don't be such an asshole. Penny gave him her dirtiest look. Ray appeared in the open doorway. All set. Dwayne got up and nodded in the direction of his yard. Here she comes. The two men disappeared into the house, and Penny watched the new woman approach. She was very attractive in spite of her clothes, patterned leggings several sizes too small that emphasized her Stairmaster butt and were see-through in the sunlight. A white halter top with her breasts bulging over the top and chandelier earrings. She was holding a glass of wine in her hand. Penny stood up. Hi, Tara, I'm Penny. Have a seat. The guys will be right back. Tara didn't sit down. Instead, she glared at Penny. So, you're the great Penny Palmer, she said in a surly voice. Her upper lip curled as she served up a cold stare. Oh boy, someone's had too much wine, thought Penny. He's always talking about how great you are. She plunked herself into a lawn chair and took a drink of her wine. Penny this and Penny that, never shuts up. Penny chose to ignore the comment. Dwayne says you're living together now. Yeah, he lived with other women, but this is different. We're going to get married. Holy crap. Penny wondered if Dwayne knew about this. Well, that's great. Penny heard voices and the two guys appeared. Tara was out of her chair before Penny could open her mouth. Her face was suddenly animated and she was smiling as if Ray was the sun and she was a sunflower. Hi, she held out her hand. I'm Tara. I've heard so much about you. All good, I hope. Dwayne grinned. Of course, man. What else would she hear? Come on, Tara looped her arm through Dwayne's. Supper's ready. We don't want a repeat of what happened yesterday. She grinned and looked up into Ray's face. Next time, you come over to us. We can't have Dwayne wandering off when we need him at home. All of this was said without a glance at Penny, who watched with a bemused look on her face. Tara seems nice, said Ray at dinner, a big improvement over what he usually drags home. Nice to you, maybe, but she was rude and aggressive with me. Penny told him what Tara had said to her. He shrugged. She was probably joking. I'm not stupid, Ray. I can tell when someone is joking. You're being too sensitive. Right, thought Penny. She serves me up a dose of venom, falls all over my husband. And by the way, she said she didn't want Dwayne wandering off. Penny got a feeling they wouldn't be getting any more visits from him. The fact that Ray didn't believe her had already driven a wedge. She was a piece of work, all right.
Absolutely a piece of work. You portrayed her beautifully. Thank you, Vicky. Awesome. All right, Stephen Novik's going to share some poetry, I'm guessing, with us. Good to have you back, Stephen.
Thank you.
The one thing nice about Stephen, you can count, it's going to be performance poetry. It's not just poetry when Stephen gets up there.
Well, let's put that to the test, shall we? You know, a nice little, I always tend to start my little sets off with short poems. And so here's one entitled A Fairy Door. Ooh, a fairy door. What's behind? Let's see. Could be a treasure, a pleasure, or just a mystery. But when in the forest on the path you walk, a fairy's door is the kind of wood you should knock. Verdict from the doggerel court over there. What do you think? No? Okay. Back when a job well done earned you lemonade. Yeah, I'm nostalgic for those kind of moments. The kind when you remember your younger self sitting back after a long, laborious task in the backyard, spring cleaning over the weekend, everybody pitching in, raking the leaves missed in the fall cleaning, maybe mowing the lawn for the first time of the year. Mom comes out to the back porch where everyone else is sitting, waiting for the treat of a tall glass of lemonade, maybe two. You worked hard today. Yeah, and it was worth it. Look around. Yeah, look around at all the tall trees, the inner perimeter itself, just inside the fences, a second wall to keep out the neighbors. Look at the cleanliness of the lawn. It's not Versailles, but you don't want it to be. The receptors in your skin welcome the sun's warmth as your taste buds revel in the citrus wash. You want to chill, be as cool as the ice cubes, and it helps to sit in the shade of the cherry tree later, way after supper, which you hope is barbecued hamburgers. You come back out to the lower deck and light the fire in the pit, sit back in the chair and enjoy the flames, the music on the CD, and the pop. This moment would have happened anyway, but today you earned it. I wrote this poem today, and it's inspired by social media, surprise, surprise. Instant gamification number 2. You are wandering streets of cities I can only dream of. You chart your pilgrim's progress through this world via Polaroid proportion. What box will you be in today, Pandora? What sights can you show me? What delights can you wow me with? Make me wish I was there to feel the breeze, be allured by the aromas, hear the world in that moment. If it be the crackle of an old radio breaking through or the bird's song, with your SLR judgment, that being the short-lived rigidity, when, with a click, the world paused. Thank you. And a bit of an old classic from the days before. No accounting for taste. Read the bank statement, a recollection of purchases, food, medicine, entertainment, gas, repeat, not necessarily in that order. Throw in booze from time to time. The deposits are steady, but still outnumbered by the withdrawals. Record store, movie theater, concert venue, sports arena, comic books, ice cream, cigarettes, socks, a pair of shoes, toothpaste, fortune cookies hung on the rim of martini glasses, trying to invent new drinking games for my party animal friends, even though that was a dollar store purchase. And you spent more than $5. You used your Interact. So now it's a line on the monthly statement. Sent in the mail. Food, medicine, entertainment, gas, repeat. Not necessarily in that order. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. Always love to hear your rapid fire poetry. Good job. Thank you, man.
Okay.
Welcome back. All right, we're going to go back out to Zoom land now, and for a little change of pace, we're going to have a little bit of a musical interlude. Mark Wonneck is joining us from Qualicum Beach.
That must be me.
Hopefully he and Char tuned up the sound ahead of time as they did the last.
Can you hear all right? Is that going to be okay?
Good. Sounding good.
Is it sounding okay?
A little more vocal.
A little more vocal. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We can accomplish that.
Yeah.
Just by moving the microphone right up here.
Beautiful.
See, we're kind of running short of time, so I'll just do something shorter. Is that going to be okay?
Sounds good. Yes, Char says it's perfect.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you. I was holding out for happiness. You know the kind. The kind that's just there all of the time. But that was just silly. Happiness only comes in little bits. Like a beautiful smile, like a first kiss. I started down a road somewhere, or maybe I just ended up here following some birds. Anyways, that's what happened this year. I was looking for my very own story, one that makes some sense. Filled with all kinds of adventure, makes me look pretty good, I guess. But things got busy. I got to pulling weeds, mowing lawns. Maybe my story's about worrying on the things that don't belong. I started down a road somewhere, or maybe I just ended up here following some birds. Anyways, that's what happened this year. I was hoping for a bit more. Things just haven't seemed quite enough. If I could count the minutes and seconds, the years and days, maybe I could find someone I could dream of. I found a stray dog, or he found me. We're best friends now, as if it was meant to be. He dreams of chasing birds, they always get away. But it's the kind of dream that makes for a nice walk anyway. I started down a road somewhere, or maybe I just ended up here following some birds. Anyways, that's what happened this year.
Beautiful.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Mark. That was lovely. And I just love the narrative nature of your songwriting. It's a beautiful way it tells the story. And for those of you who don't know, Mark and Peter Paul Van Camp are going to be featured here live at Char's Landing on May the 13th. So I don't know about you, but I'm going to be here. It's gonna be awesome to have you here live and to hear some more of that music and that great storytelling, and to hear some of our next reader, Peter Paul Van Camp's lively verse. And yeah, it's going to be just a great night all the way around, I'm sure. So mark that one on your calendar. So May the 13th, and Peter Paul Van Camp, I'm going to turn the mic over to you now.
Well, thank you, Derek. Thank you very much. Here's my story. Next week, I'm going to be turning 70. And so I'd had this title running around in my noggin for a little while. I was going to write a poem entitled Peter Paul Van Camp on a Bicycle at 70. And so here's what I wrote. I wrote it. Here's how it goes. This is number 1. Picture this in black and white, held in place with silver corners, in the photograph album lying open on your lap. Who's that figure of amusement, straight of back and leaning forward, bespectacled and wide-kneed, hindquarters slightly off the seat, his hands firmly on the handle grips, eyes upon the wrinkled pavement, riding with awareness, being heedful, taking care? I dare say you might be thinking, Take it easy there, old timer, steady as you go, and leave him to his peddling as you move to turn the page. But you remark his wry expression, and you pause as if to say, you kind of have to hand it to him. Give the old boy his due. He may not know where he's headed, but he sure is on his way. And so when I finished writing that, I thought, well, that doesn't quite cover the topic. So I decided I was going to write 70 of these pieces about being 70 and on a bicycle and having my name. Obviously, there's not time to read much more tonight, so I'll just leave you with Peter Paul Van Camp on a bicycle at 70, number 8. And so far, this is the shortest one I've composed. And no, I'm not the unicyclist, not the unicyclist's son, but combined, they make one bicyclist. I can be that till they come. So, Mark and I will see you on May the 13th, and oh, hot diggity, we're looking forward to that, being in the room and seeing all the folks. Thank you.
Yeah, we can't wait to have you here, Peter. That'll be wonderful. Thank you, man. That was great.
Thank you.
And kudos to you for setting yourself a goal of writing 70 poems on the same topic. That's awesome. All right, our next reader is coming to us on Zoom as well. Laura Vars is in Vancouver. Oh, Laura, did we lose you? Oh dear. Oh, too bad. Okay. We're going to go to a live reader here at Char's Landing then. We've got, I believe it's Karen Poirier is going to read. Yes, Karen, come on up.
Hi. Yeah. This is another excerpt from my book, 1000 Days. An hour later, in the dim light of the tattoo shop, Lloyd examined his muscular arm. He rolled up the sleeve of the shirt that was covering the tattoo. It was perfect. The newly drawn tattoo was a little red around the edges, but the delicate blue and red curves of the writing looked back at him, Olivine's memory, carved into his heart and mind. He gently traced the O with its flowing curves and longed to touch her, hold her in his arms, and never let her go. Even in his intoxicated state, the longing lay like a dense haze, and the wish to return home washed over him once more. It'll take a week to 10 days to heal up. I've put some antibacterial ointment on it. It'll be a bit sore, like a sunburn, but it'll heal and scab off. If you think you need it, I can give you some ice to take the swelling down, the shop owner said, smiling through a missing front tooth. His muscular arms were adorned with swirling patterns of red and blue ink, and the single gold ring in his ear caught the dim light from above in the shop. I'm good, Lloyd muttered in response. When they arrived at the tattoo parlor, conveniently located close to the tavern, Bert sat slouched behind an old wooden desk, feet raised up on the top of the desk, and reading the Daily Mirror. It was a small shop, sparsely lit up behind a glass window that was blackened out with an opaque curtain. At the top of the window, written in red, were the words Bert's Tattoos. He looked the four young men over, then with a knowing smile put the paper down and said, "Well, lads, what can I do for you?" It wasn't until Lloyd's tattoo was completed that Lloyd noticed, then decided to ignore the dirt underneath Bert's fingernails and the dust on the floor of the shop. The ale made Lloyd sleepy, and the sound of buzzing needles lulled him into another time and space. If not for the smell of Dettol, he probably would have completely dozed off. He faintly heard the bell tinkle when Mike and Bob stumbled outside.
The ale left Mike happily saturated and awash in careless exuberance. His face had a rosy glow that threatened to light up the darkness in the streets. And Bob, who was 5 years older than Mike, decided to take him for a walk outside, hoping the cool air would sober him up. Lloyd felt in his pocket for the folded silk handkerchief he'd bought for Olivine earlier that day. It was blue, her favorite color and the color of her eyes, embellished with embroidered flowers and the word remembrance in the corner. Around the edges, it was finished with wide off-white lace. The handkerchief was pretty, just like the girl he'd bought it for. Even though it wasn't much, he felt he was lucky to find it. There weren't many luxury items available for sale in the shops, but he wanted to send her a gift that would keep him in her thoughts. The handkerchief was small, and he hoped it would be easy to mail. Dan had a tattoo of a cougar done on his shoulder, and when it was finished, he put on his jacket, paid for the tattoo, and headed towards the door to go to the train station. Mike and Bob can get tattoos some other time, said Dan. We got to get back to camp. I'm right behind you. See you at the train station, Lloyd answered, as he put his jacket back on. Lloyd left the tattoo parlor and walked into the street. He stopped a moment, then lit up another cigarette. His companions had disappeared into the inky darkness, and for a moment he hesitated. The truth was, he just didn't want to go back to the base yet. What the hell, I got time for another drink, he thought. As he was about to enter the door of the tavern, he heard a voice call out his name. Lloyd looked around but didn't see anyone. Then he heard it again and stopped cold. A chill ran up his spine. It was Olivine's voice. He was sure of it. Lloyd patted the silk handkerchief that was in his coat pocket. Then, after drawing in another puff of smoke from his cigarette, he changed his mind about entering the pub and started down the street towards the train station. He walked slowly, the sound of his boots echoing in the eerily quiet night air. He felt as though he was moving in slow motion when he heard the drone in the sky. He'd hardly gone a block when it sounded. The shrill air raid siren that raised the small hairs on his body and made his heart race screamed into the night. Lloyd looked around, wondering where he should go, when the unmistakable whine of a descending bomb pierced the night air. Lloyd braced. Shit.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen. Took us right there again, as always. All right. I think that's brought us to the end of the open micers, except for me. I'm going to read you a quick poem, so I'll hop up to the podium here. Yeah. All right. I just, as I said earlier, I'm moving, so I'm very busy, but I did manage to squeeze one poem out this month, so I thought I'd share it with you folks. It's called Sacred Space, and for any of you who have been in sacred space, when you go into that place, it's, how should I describe? There's no way to describe, but once you've been there, you know it's different, and you long to get back there. So, sacred space. Come by sage smoke or sandalwood, by curtains call and response or silence or prayer, through tantra or mantra or drumming or casting a royal coachman into a back eddy to hook the perfect word. The divine doesn't care what drives you to the temple. Joy comes purely from your arrival in that sacred space. Thoughts slowed to a stroll instead of a sprint. The gap between outer and inner thinned. Even the air different. The stillness somehow more still. The silence more alive. Inside, silhouettes stipple the walls as ancient ones crowd in to help, to witness, to affirm. The sweet taste of infinite possibility forms a prasad on your tongue. in the forgotten distance, a siren, the emergency of your old life being driven to the morgue. Thank you. Thank you. For those of you who don't know, prasad is it's blessed food that you get like at a Hindu temple or a Sikh temple. They give you blessed food to eat. It's like the communion wafer sort of in the Christian church. So anyway, that wraps up another episode of Electric Mermaid. And I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and for everybody out there in Zoom land. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to Char for being the host again and doing all the miraculous work of technical challenges, overcoming them. And Karl for keeping us on track. Yes, thank you, Karl.
And
a reminder for anybody out there in Zoomland who cares to donate a little cash to Char, is never turned away. It's at electricmermaidreads@gmail.com. If you want to e-transfer something over to Char, that'd be great.
And thank you to Derek.
My pleasure to be here as always. Thank you. And
our May reader is Tanji Bartel. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. I don't know, but that's our May's feature reader.
All right. And that's going to be the last Wednesday in May, which is the 31st. So the very last day of May. That's actually the day I'm out of my house. So I'm going to be here with my hair standing straight out, I'm sure. But anyway. Yeah, it'll be all good. So until then, stay safe, everybody. Keep writing and keep inspiring each other, and we'll see you next month.
See you in May.
Take care.
Hi, Kathy.
Bye, Lesli. I loved your poem.
I loved your story. I wish you would read it to the end.
Oh, no.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Write to you soon.
Yeah. Oh, I hate to leave. Bye, everybody.
Bye. I think we're the last ones.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Thanks to Char.
Hope to see you in September.